After the machlokes of Korach, the Torah tells us about the various different gifts that need to be given to Kohanim and the Meiser that needs to be given to the Leviim. This Sifri explains that since Korach was trying to contest the Kahuna, Hashem now is sort of confirming the Kahuna by giving the Kohanim these special gifts. The question then becomes, why is the Torah discussing the Meiser that's given to the Levi? On the contrary, the machlokes of Korach was only against Kahuna. In fact, Korach himself was a Levi. Now, we might want to say that the Torah is trying to say that the Leviim are not being punished because of Korach's story. Instead, they are still getting their Meiser. But from the fact that the Torah puts the Meiser together with the Matnas Kuna, it sounds like they're both in the same category. We're trying to emphasize the greatness of the Kohanim, the greatness of the Leviim, by these gifts that we're giving them, and not only by that saying that Leviim aren't being punished. We also need to understand, says the Rebbe, what's really the inner connection between this idea of giving these gifts to the Kohanim and the Leviim to negating the argument and claims of Korach. The Rebbe brings from the Noyam Elimelech that the Machloikas of Korach is associated with the Rakia, the firmament that Hashem made to separate between the upper waters and the lower waters in the beginning of creation. That is, there's a separation between the upper realms and the lower realms, and in Korach's opinion, there needs to remain this sort of separation. And that's why Korach thinks that a Kohen generally is a holy person, removed from the world. In Korach's opinion, that's very nice. But the Kohen shouldn't be trying to influence the rest of the people, trying to lift them up to become closer to Hashem. In other words, these people, if the rest of the people, if their idea is to be involved in the world, then be involved in the world. You could try to make the world a place that could be more a keli for godliness, but don't try to lift up the people to become closer to Hashem. Korach wants to be a Kohen, but a different kind of Kohen, one that's completely not connected to the rest of the people and to the lowliness, so to speak, of the world. And this is really what Matnos Kuna is coming to answer. Matnos Kuna is saying that no, there is a connection between the Yidden and the Kohanim. The Yidden are giving some of their things and lifting up the Gashmias to Hashem and giving it to the Kohanim. The question then remains is, why are we giving to the Kohen things that the Kohen can now go ahead and benefit from it? Some of the Matnas Kuna, in fact, remain even completely chulin. Why aren't we focusing on things that are going to be completely holy? Like, for example, a carbon, if the idea is to lift up Gashmis and make it holy. In order to explain this, the Rebbe first focuses on something else. The Rebbe wants to look at the connection between Gimel Tammuz, the day that the Frierdiker Rebbe was released from prison, sent to Kastrama, which falls out often in the week of Parshas Korach. Now, simply you could say this is the same point that we were saying before. Korach didn't care about the holiness of the Kohanim by itself. That's fine with him. But he thinks they should remain removed and separated, not influencing the people. In a similar way, those that imprisoned the Frierdiker Rebbe were fine with the Frierdiker Rebbe learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, but not to spread Torah and Yiddishkeit and influence the rest of the Yidden. And so to the Geula of Gimel Tammuz is that Hashem is showing everyone that the Frierdiker Rebbe could continue his work of spreading Torah and Chassidus and Yiddishkeit, just like in the Parsha where Hashem is nullifying Korach's argument by giving the Matnos Kahuna. But the Rebbe says seemingly it's not completely the same. Because in Gimel Tammuz ultimately the Frierdiker Rebbe is not able to continue with the whole strength as he was before. Because he's still in Kastrama, the Geula is only going to be on Yud Beis Tammuz, and in the meantime, there's still going to be more difficulties. He's still in Russia, he's still in communist Russia, etc. In order to understand all of this, the Rebbe goes back to the idea of Matnos Kahuna and Meiser, and the Rebbe says a very simple question. Why is there, in these different things we give, why is there a measure how much we give? And in many cases, there's a maximum how much we're allowed to give. Why can't we make everything holy to Hashem? To explain all of this, the Rebbe says, let's look at the differences between Kohanim and Leviim and what Korach actually wanted. Chassidus explains a Kohen is a Isha Chesed, Levi is the idea of Gevura. Korach wants Gevura should overpower Chesed. What does this mean? In Avodah, what this means is, Chesed is about Hashpah, giving down, bringing down into the world, godliness into the world. Gevura is about, so to speak, escaping, running from the world, the idea of Ratzui, striving to get closer to the Eibishter and leaving the connection with the world. Korach is of the opinion, as we said before, that the Tachtoinim by themselves have no connection to Elikus. If anything, it's about leaving, not being a Tachtoin anymore, being removed from the world. You can't remain in the world and have a connection to Elikus. So it's either being removed completely or you're down completely. As a response to this, we have the idea of Matnos Kuna, which are specifically things that are not becoming completely holy, different to Karbonos. In other words, by a carbon, the thing became completely holy. The chidush of matnis kahuna is that we're taking things as they are, and technically things, some of them even being chulin, and yet they're connected to elikus. This idea is even further emphasized in Meiser, which we asked before, why are we speaking about Meiser over here? Because in many of the matnis kahuna, the way it works is we're giving it to Hashem, and the kohen is getting it from Hashem. In some of the matnis kahuna, we say what belongs to the kohen is really belonging to him, even as the Yisrael has it. There's certain parts of the animal, specific parts that belong to the kohen already. It's specifically meiser that has no kedusha at all. Anyone's allowed to eat it. And there's no part of the fruit that already belongs to the Levi. This emphasizes even more that we have things that are completely regular things, mundane things, and yet they too are connected to Hashem. But the Rebbe is going to go a step further and show that there's some things that are even more simple and more mundane and still connected to Hashem. And the Rebbe says, we know that one of the arguments of Korach, he says that the talus, that's all of tchelas, should be exempt from tzitzis. In Chassidus, it's explained what this means is, talus represents a very, very great light coming from above. Not needing tzitzis means that it doesn't have the coming down into a panimius, into a more internal and specific way. In Avodas Hashem, what this means is that when a person is being refined only because of a great oil from above, but if it's not coming from within himself, it can remain superficial and beyond him. And going back now to Meiser, therefore even Meiser, which in some way is still a mitzvah and so on, as we'll see in a minute, it's still not the ultimate answer yet to Machlokas Korach. And we need that what you're giving should also influence the rest of your possessions, even the regular mundane possessions. And the Rebbe says, now we understand why we're only giving some of our possessions to Truma and Meiser, the rest is going to remain regular and mundane, because ultimately even Truma and Meiser are part of a mitzvah. But when we have the rest of our possessions that remains for our personal use, and yet we're using it how Hashem wants, this reveals in the greatest way how the Gashmis, that's part of my own possessions, yet it's completely connected to Hashem, and this is the ultimate of the Dira B'Tachtonim. So ultimately we have now, in summary, we really have three ideas. We have things that are completely holy, like Karbonos. We have the things that are like Matnos, Kahuna, and Meiser, mitzvahs. And then we have the regular possessions that are the persons. Says the Rebbe, in Achdus Hashem, we also have something similar to these three ideas in the understanding of the oneness of Hashem. There's one level where we say the worlds are completely bottled to Hashem. There's absolutely no world. What's felt in the world is completely the way it's up above, the way like before the creation, only Hashem. What is that arousing the person? Being removed from the world and from Gashmis. This is similar to like the carbon that's just completely holy. The next level is of how Hashem is coming down and spreading Elikus in the world, into every single thing. That means there is a world, but we're recognizing that the reality of the world is really Elikus. That causes the person to be involved with the Gashmis and to feel Elikus. This is more going to be like the Trumas and Meisers, like the Matnis Kahuna, and the Meisers. But there are still two separate things. Finally, we have, when you see in the Gashmis itself, how the Gashmis is all one with Elikus, which is like the third level, where we're speaking about our own physical things, and they too are connected to Hashem. The Rebbe says, now we can understand much better the connection between Korach and Gimel Tammuz. The Geula, as it was in Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, means the Frierdiker Rebbe completely left the Rishus, the domain of these people that were so against Torah and Yiddishkeit. It doesn't emphasize so much this idea that the Tachtoinim, the lowly world itself, is agreeing to his Avodah. It's specifically when they are the ones sending him to Kastrama. And in Kastrama, the Frierdiker Rebbe is organizing a cheder, a mikveh, saying my marim there. That emphasizes even more how the lowly world, as it is for itself, is agreeing, so to speak, for the spreading of Torah and Yiddishkeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe. This is similar to the ultimate nullification of Korach's argument by the fact that the Tachta in itself, the lowliest things itself, we come to recognize that the Bepanimius is really Elikus. The Rebbe connects us now to a famous sikha the Frierdiker Rebbe said when he left jail going to Kastrama, where we also see these three levels. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, we ask of Hashem Yisborech, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu Imanu, Hashem should be with us, Kasher Hoyim Aviseinu, as he was with our fathers, Al Yazveinu, Al Yichenu, you shouldn't abandon us. The Frierdiker Rebbe goes on and says, Hashem Yisborech should be with us and will be with us like he was with our Avos, even though we're not like our Avos, that we're Bali Mesiras Nefesh, B'Poyel Mamish, V'Torah and Mitzvahs. And the Rebbe asks a number of questions. First of all, the moment you say Elokeinu, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu, the word Elokeinu means, it's already the way Hashem is our koyach, is our chayas. If that's the case, why do we add the word imanu? Of course, Elokeinu means Hashem is with us. Secondly, once you have that Hashem Elokeinu imanu is with us, why do we have to add that He shouldn't abandon us? And finally, what does it mean when the Frierdiker Rebbe says we're not like our Avos that had Mesiras Nefesh? The Frierdiker Rebbe is currently standing in a state of major Mesiras Nefesh for Torah and Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe explains that the Frierdiker Rebbe over here was trying to bring about the Gula even for Yidden that don't have Mesiras Nefesh practically for Torah and Mitzvahs. Even on the lowly Yidden, he wants to be poiled that Yehi Hashem Elokeinu imanu. And therefore, says the Rebbe, we now have again these three levels. Hashem Elokeinu represents a level of someone that Hashem, Havaya, is Elokeinu, is his highest. That's his whole reality. That was like the first and highest level, like the carbon, something completely holy. Then we go down to the next level. You have a person that he's a person for himself, but he's connected to Hashem, two separate things. And we say Hashem Elokeinu imanu, Hashem is still with him. In other words, he's connected to Elikus. This is like the second level, like the Matnos Kuna and the Meiser, which is on the one hand, the regular world, but connected to Hashem, but it's already part of a mitzvah, it's on a higher level. But then we come to the lowliest people, so to speak, to the tachtoinim, to the things that are like similar to our regular possessions. Al yazveinu ve'al yichenu. We're speaking about someone that's on a very lowly level, that even as they are in their current state, there should be that feeling that there's no chas v'shalom separation from Hashem. Hashem doesn't abandon them, and they don't abandon Hashem. And this itself, by the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying, this actually achieved on these lowly people, on those people that, the ones that arrested him, that they too should agree to the spreading of Torah and to help ultimately in the Gula. And the Rebbe concludes with the Hoirah and the power that we get from this day of Gimel Tammuz, not to be nispal, not to be affected by all these things that might be hindrances, trying to stop us from spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit. And we have the promise of the Eibishter and of that Tzicha, that He Hashem Elokeinu imanu, that Hashem will be with us like He was with our fathers, Al Yazveinu v'Al Yichenu, and all Yidden will have Oir, Beruchnius and Begashmius.